Hi, Rich Karuba for bowlingball.com. I've got a long article posted in the Bowlversity section of our website at bowlingball.com called How to Compare Usbc Red, White, and Blue Oil Patterns. Man, we could talk for hours about this subject. I only got a couple minutes. So I'm going to rifle through some of the key information about those three patterns. And I think what's important to note is that most of the lane conditions that you encounter, particularly when you bowl your leagues in most bowling centers around the country, are the Usbc Red pattern. And unless a lane pattern is identified as a Usbc Blue or White pattern, it's by default, it's automatically a red pattern. And that's usually your very wet, dry lane conditions or blocked patterns, or when you have a very high ratio of oil in the center of the lane compared to the edges, it's very dry. And it helps steer the ball to the pocket quite easily. So it's the highest scoring of all the three patterns when you take into account all the bowlers who play on house conditions. And that's one of the reasons we see the very high scores today compared to 40 years ago. The bowling ball equipment has improved, but certainly the lane conditions are very easy, as well are how smooth the lane surfaces are today. So anyway, the red pattern, it basically allows the bowler to find more oil in the center of the lane. So when then toward the edges of the lane, if you miss your intended target line, it'll help get the ball back to the pocket. And of course, the distance that the oil is carried down the lane depends on just how you have to align yourself on the red pattern. And that's something that's rarely ever advertised or discussed in bowling conversations when we talk about oil patterns, is the distance the oil has gone. Because the distance will change where the break point's located down the lane slightly. So the experienced players understand how to make adjustments to this, and it's something you should discuss at home with your pro shop operators or your local bowling professionals if you need to know more about the red pattern. Even the mechanic or the maintenance chief of maintenance at the local bowling centers, they can discuss it with you because they prepare the lanes every day for bowling, open play, and for competition play. Now, of course, the white pattern is the next highest scoring, and it can still be a very good scoring pattern, but it's more of a crowned or blended pattern, not so much wet, dry, and you know, where there's a big difference between where the oil stops across the lane and where there isn't oil. It blends out more evenly. And the reason it can be a high-scoring pattern, if an experienced player knows how to angle, what type of release angle to play down the lane toward the break point, it can be a very easy pattern to consistently hit the pocket, and it'll offer you a good angle of entry. And that helps pin carry. So the white pattern can be a very good pattern. We see it used sometimes in tournaments or competitions or even in local bowling centers, but it doesn't quite give the forgiveness when you miss your intended target as does the red pattern. And the blue pattern is the most difficult of all of them. Why? Well, it's a flatter lane condition and only has to start with maybe 3 units of oil in the center of the lane per 1 unit toward the edges. And that goes away very quickly as bowlers start rolling shots through down the lane, the oil breakdown and oil carry down, and that blue pattern can become a very difficult oil pattern as more lineage is on it, where you miss your target outside and it won't hook back. You push it up the middle of the lane a little closer or more direct, and it hooks early on you and misses the pocket. Those are things that typically we see happen on the blue pattern, and it takes a talented eye. It takes a bowling ball with a very controllable ball motion, where you don't need something to hook dramatically on you and make a move on you that's unpredicted, because the blue pattern is a very touchy pattern. It takes good speed control, consistent releases, and a smooth bowling ball motion so you can line up and play and be effective on it. Remember, scores are going to be relatively lower on the blue pattern. Well, those are some of the things that you might see, especially the blue pattern. If you go to the USBC Nationals or even the state tournaments, you might see these more difficult conditions. It's more challenging. Some local bowling centers run tournaments or even leagues, sport condition leagues and so on, where the blue pattern might be used, or even specific patterns for sport bowling might be used, which are not the red pattern that you see most typically. You should be aware of these things. Learn a little bit more about the lane you bowl on. You can't see the oil, so it helps to know a little bit about where it is, where it's located, what volume, so it helps you make intelligent decisions on how to line up initially and how to make lane adjustments as you bowl during the session on the lanes. Hope some of this information helps you compare those three red, white, and blue USBC oil patterns, and we wish you all the very best.